And just right off the bat, trying to keep the precepts strengthens our mindfulness and our introspective awareness. And then those two mental factors help our concentration and make generating wisdom easier. So whatever level of precepts we have, we need mindfulness and introspective awareness in order to keep them well. And as we keep them well, then we feel better about ourselves. Our heart is lighter, our relationships with other people are better, and we are purifying our mind of a lot of negative karma and preventing the creation of new negative karma. So let's approach listening to the Bodhisattva precepts with a happy mind, because we understand the benefits of keeping them, not only for our own practice, but for everybody around us. Because the more we live within the Bodhisattva precepts, which are designed to oppose the self-centered thought, then the kinder we're going to be. And of course, people receive direct benefit. And through us progressing on the path to enlightenment, they receive indirect benefit, which one day will be direct. But right now we're creating the causes. So with that kind of perspective, then, let's approach the topic today. Okay. Okay. So we're on number 12. We're zooming along here. Okay, so Chandragaman calls it adopting wrong livelihood. And here, willingly accepting things that either oneself or others have obtained by any of the 5 wrong livelihoods of hypocrisy, hinting, flattery, coercion, or bribery. Okay, so they talk a lot about the 5 wrong livelihoods. Even in the Lamrim, in this section about making offerings before we even start to practice, they emphasize making offerings that have not been obtained by means of the 5 wrong livelihoods. So I'll read what it says here, and then we'll make some examples. So this deed is the first of 3 that mainly concern ourselves. Okay, it involves acquiring goods such as food and clothing in an incorrect manner. In the Great Way, it is described as deteriorated livelihood. In the Lamrim, it is explained that the 5 wrong ways of earning our livelihood are affecting false piety, using flattery, hinting, using force, and giving small gifts in the hope of receiving something substantial in return. Using any of these methods to acquire food, clothing, and so on, without the slightest twinge of consciousness or regret is a misdeed. As with the second misdeed, maintaining thoughts of desire, the present fault is necessarily associated with kleshas, with afflictions. Okay, however, if we sincerely make an effort to resist our desire to engage in wrong livelihood, try hard to do so, apply the remedies, but fail, as with the second misdeed, there is no fault. Okay, So let's take a look at these 5 wrong livelihoods, because I don't know about you, but a lot of the way I was brought up was to do the 5 wrong livelihoods, because those were considered much more polite than asking for something directly. Yeah, because it wasn't very nice to ask for something directly. Yeah, so what do you do when you want something that somebody else has? You hint. Yeah, because if you ask them directly, oh, that shows that you're greedy. But if you hint, you know, then you just hint, you know. Oh, those cookies you gave me last month were so good. Yeah? Or, oh, that sweater you gave to so-and-so is so nice. They're really enjoying it so much. And look at this old thing that I have. Yeah. Or there's this whole empty wall in my room. A tonka would look so nice there. Okay? So we hint. We hint. Yeah? So if we get the thing through hinting like that, and you know, I don't know about for you, but this is how I did things, you know, because it's not nice to ask directly, and especially for women, you know. I think women are not allowed to ask for things directly. You're considered bossy, you know, if you do. So what do? We hint. Yeah? Okay? So, anyway, this was just my, maybe you disagree. Any of you a hint? Oh, the guys aren't moving. Then flattery. Yeah. Oh, you were so kind, you know. You're one of the most dedicated people we have at this Abbey. You know, really, you're so wonderful. You know, nobody else helps you as much as helps us as much as you do. Yeah. And so we praise people. Praising people is good. You know, we should praise people. But this is flattery because we're trying to get something out of them. You know, where the praising is, you know, it may be true praise, but the reason we're saying it is because we want something. Yeah, so the motivation in the mind's very contorted. Yeah. So we flatter people. Oh, you're so quiet when you meditate. You're one of the best meditators. Yeah, you're so generous. So we flatter. Yeah, we flatter people in the hopes that then they'll like us and then they'll give us something. So sometimes we might combine hinting and flattering. You know, you praise the person and tell them so how wonderful they are, and then you hint what you're wanting. Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is giving a small gift in order to get a big one. Sometimes they translate it as bribery, but bribery sounds like a really underhanded, low thing to do. Whereas, you know, giving somebody a gift so that they'll give you another gift that's hopefully worth more is something people do, isn't it? I mean, when you were still in the process of giving Christmas presents or birthday presents, did you tabulate, you know, how much the present that you're going to give somebody needed to cost so that they'll give you something really nice in return? Oh, you didn't do that? Oh, too bad. Well, that's what I mean. That's why you give as little as you can without looking cheap, but enough so that the other person feels obliged to give you something back that's nice. Yeah? Uh-huh.
Well, I'm born in the Syria and Eastern Jordan, and many products, and some people had relationships to people in the West, the West students, and they sent some packets with some stuff like coffee or chocolate. Later I heard that some people found out that they bought very cheap ones.
That they what?
Very cheap products, not good quality.
Oh,
And they presented themselves as a good giver, I don't know.
Uh-huh. So that their relatives would give them something.
Yeah, like good connections, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So this is, yeah. When, you know, you were born in East Germany, and so people had relatives in the West, and so they would give their relatives something, so their relatives would give them some really nice chocolate and different products from the West that you couldn't get. Yeah. Yeah. So we do that sometimes, you know, just give somebody a little gift and then hope that they remember that we gave them something and they'll give us something back that's really, really nice. Yeah. Especially if we present ourselves as a Dharma practitioner. Yeah. Here I am, you know, the renounced one, giving you a gift. Yeah, isn't that the perfect setup? Yeah. So we have to be quite careful of that. Yeah.
Would exchanging favors fall under that category too?
Well,
not necessarily something material, but just I'll, you know, I'll scratch your back, you scratch
my back.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So exchanging favors, even though it's not a material good. This one pertains specifically to material goods, but when we're looking at the motivation, yeah, then some forms of exchanging favor could certainly be like that. Yeah, and the whole thing depends on your motivation. I know somebody important here, and I'll introduce you to them if you introduce me to the important person you know over there. So it's nothing material, yeah, but you're, you know, the whole idea is that our mind is, we're manipulating out of greed, basically is what it is, you know. Yeah. Okay, so giving a small present to get a large one. And the next one is putting somebody in a position where they can't say no. Okay, where they're going to look bad if they say no, where they're going to feel bad about themselves if they say no. Yeah. We're doing this building project, and you gave us $10,000 for our last building project, and we're so appreciative. You were really, really kind. And we don't have many other people who can give us that much, and we really need the money, you know, because otherwise we're not going to be able to do this project, and it's so important that we do it. And, you know, so we're really kind of counting on you. Then what are they going to say? You know? We certainly did some flattery in there, didn't we? You know, a tinge of hinting, but very much coercion. Yeah, because they would feel lousy if they said no. Yeah. So anytime we put somebody in a position where, you know, and you can easily do it by combining it with either hinting or flattering, where they're going to feel bad if they say no. Yeah, or they're going to look humiliated, you know, they're going to be embarrassed in front of a group. Yeah. Oh, we're doing the fundraising here, and everybody else in this group gave $100. Yeah, see all the people in the room, they all gave $100. How much are you going to give? You know?
Well, that's like a script out of a fundraising.
I know. It's a script out of a fundraising book. That's why I tell you that a lot of the 5 wrong livelihoods are things that we were raised to do. Yeah. And they're considered polite, but they're manipulative. That's the point. Yeah. And then the 5th one is hypocrisy, or what he had another term for it here. He called it what,
False piety.
false piety, yes. Yeah, or hypocrisy. So you pretend to be this incredible, devout practitioner whenever your benefactor is around. Yeah, and they look and, oh, you look so devout and you're practicing so well, and you sit in the front row, or you have this honor or that honor. And so the benefactor thinks, wow, this person's really good. I want to help them in their practice. But then when the benefactor's not there, then, you're sleeping until 8 o'clock, and you're, kind of not concentrating on your practice and hanging out talking. Yeah. So they tell this story. I think it was one of the Kadampa Geshis who... his benefactor was coming to his retreat place one day. So he made this very beautiful altar with, nice offerings, so that his benefactor would be very impressed. And what he realized, what his motivation was, then he took dirt and threw it all over his altar. And his Lama, who had psychic powers, said, oh, that was the purest offering he made. Yeah? Because he was really practicing the Dharma at that moment, because he was combating his selfish, greedy mind. Okay? But we should look at, how we act sometimes to impress people, and ask ourselves, do I only behave in a certain way when I'm around certain people? Because they'll give me something, or they'll be impressed, or they'll do something for me. Yeah, so I make special efforts to look good in front of them, to look very pious, or maybe I look very well connected, or maybe I look very astute and erudite, but some way of presenting ourselves that isn't how we normally act, yeah, but is done, again, through manipulation, and it's hypocrisy, to get something from somebody. Can you think of some examples? Mm-hmm.
I heard some book for another one that when in my more near context, that is Mexico, they're the people that want something with someone.
Mm-hmm.
They give a very, very, very good gift.
Mm-hmm.
That person, in the moment that person can ask for a favor, they can
yes.
Because they accept that because you say, why I can reject a car or something like
yeah.
that, even house, and then they accept it and say, oh, wonderful, no? But later comes another part.
Right. Yeah. So the whole thing of giving somebody, you're saying, in this way, actually a very nice gift, and then afterwards asking for them to, this is actually the standard way of doing business in some countries. My friends who do business in China tell me that this is how you do business. Is you have to give people gifts, and you have to give them gifts according to their rank and what they can do. Yeah, and it's the only way to get business done is to give gifts. Yeah, so it's in India we call it bakshish, bribery, corruption, but some people call it being polite. Now, if you really have a sincere mind and you really sincerely want to give somebody a gift, that's a totally different thing. I'm not anti-gift giving. It's nice to give people gifts with a sincere mind. But when we're looking for something, yeah. And your example was quite good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the culture of India, or a culture like that where bakshish is a kind of normal way of going about things, and they want to accomplish some Dharma activity, like how is Yeah.
Okay, so you're in India or one of those countries where bakshish is the way you do things and you want to accomplish a dharma activity. I will only tell you what I've observed, okay? Most of the people give the bakshish, okay? This is one thing that I've noticed with Venerable Tenzin Palmo when she set up, Dugyo Gyaltsa Ling, is she did everything completely above board. So it's quite legal for her to bring the money in the country. Yeah. And so, in some instances people don't do that, but she did everything completely above board. And in the end it saves a lot of headaches. Yeah. But I've also seen many people, it's very common, then they just give the bakshish to do it.
I don't know if this is, but this depends on the motivation again too. When some organizations organize an event as a leaders or other teachers, and then they need to give up a lot of money, high donors, to kind of pay this event, and then now they have to give them a present, and this is at least they sit in the front, or they have a meeting with this kind of person.
Yeah, okay. So when you're having an event with His Holiness and you need benefactors to sponsor it, then you offer them, front row seats or the special meal with His Holiness, for all the benefactors, or you give them. So some websites just do it quite overtly, they have different levels of donors, and if you give this, we'll give you this gift, and if you give that, we'll give you that gift. And they're completely, there, at least they're being quite direct. Yeah, they're saying if you want this is how much you have to pay, but we're calling it a donation. But also, the people are very kind, because otherwise it's very difficult to have the money to sponsor something from His Holiness. Yeah. So I know that's something that we've run into here at the Abbey, because some people have told us that we should have different levels of donors and give, put people's names on, things according to how much money they've given us and stuff like that. And it's not something that I'm into at all. I really appreciate and I want to thank people. Yeah, but I don't want to do this thing of, yeah, you give us so much money and we'll name something after you. Yeah, where it's like that. If somebody gave us a lot of money, we might be very grateful and name it after them. But that's something different than, kind of give us this and then we'll do that. Yeah. So.
I just thought of one example for this hypocrisy. And I remember when I was applying for college scholarships, that's really an area where, I would definitely kind of make it look as though I was a much better student or doing more activities or having more leadership capabilities or whatever the thing was in the scholarship essays, and then to get the funding.
Yeah. So very much when you're applying for college admission or college scholarships, you make yourself look good. Yeah, and that's actually expected, isn't it? It's actually expected. Yeah. I remember when one of my nieces was applying for college, and she had to write some kind of essay about herself, and so I was saying, well, write about your good qualities, but also write about your faults. And the family was shocked. You can't do that. You just can't do that. And I said, actually, I would be really impressed if an applicant told me what they weren't so good at, because then I knew it would be somebody who would be quite straightforward and honest. Yeah, But people said, oh, they were very upset. Don't even think of that. Yeah. So, look back and think of some examples of how you've, techniques you use or how you've gotten certain things. Yeah? Okay, then number 13. Chandragoman says being overexcited, roaring with laughter, and so forth. Oh dear, that sounds like me. Here it says, being distracted by and having a strong attachment to amusement, or without any beneficial purpose, leading others to join in distracting activities. So there's two parts of it, okay? One is being distracted by and having strong attachment to amusement and having a good time, and, so that your mind really is into that. And then the second part is bringing everybody else along with you so that it becomes a party, that everybody calls a good time. Okay, so the misdeed is incurred by the attraction to excitement, singing, shouting, talking loudly, dancing, and so forth, or by encouraging others to behave in these ways. For this reason, just wanting to engage in these activities or to make others do so is sufficient to commit the secondary fault. It is described as deteriorated behavior. Okay, so the first part of it, actually, you don't have to do anything. It's all happening in your own mind. You're planning the party and you're planning this and that, and you're going to go here and there, and I'm going to go visit my family, and then we'll go out to the movies, and we'll go here, and then all these things I don't get to do at the Abbey. Oh boy, and we're going to have such a good time. Or, wait until the abbess is gone, then everybody. An important topic of study in Buddhist philosophy, mind and cognition, or low-rig, treats different kinds of perceptions and the various aspects of our consciousness, notably what are known as main minds and the mental factors that accompany them. Okay, so excitement is a secondary disturbing mental factor. When we talk about low-rig, it's not a main mind, it's a secondary mind. And it's defined by Arya Sangha in his Compendium of Knowledge as a state of mental agitation that derives from attachment and is drawn to familiar, attractive objects. It has the function of hindering the attainment of a high degree of concentration called meditative serenity. It differs from distraction, which does not imply mental agitation and may derive from anger or ignorance as well as attachment. Distraction is characterized by mental wandering, but does not necessarily entail attraction to pleasant objects. Okay, so here, in talking about concentration, differentiating between excitement and distraction. So distraction is when you're going off the object, you're mental wandering. It may be by attachment, some mild form of attachment. It could be by ignorance. It could be boredom. It could be anger. You spend your whole session getting mad at somebody. Okay, so many different kinds of things can take you away and make you wander. Excitement is pointed out specifically because it regards attractive objects that we have some contact with already, okay, or have had some contact with in the past. So the mind is really drawn to the attractive object. So you're sitting and meditating, you think about lunch. Yeah, you think about the boyfriend you had 25 years ago. You think about, anything that, going out and lying on the beach. You think about, all these fun, attractive, pleasant things you can do. Okay? So this is one of our main things that makes us go off the object of meditation, isn't it? This mind of excitement that's kind of either longing to recreate past pleasure or looking in the future, Yeah. Oh, the retreat's going to be over soon. Then all of our friends are going to come. Then we get to sit and talk with them. You know, I wonder what they're going to bring. Then they're going to tell us how wonderful we are for doing 3 months of retreat. Yeah.
You're getting me excited.
Yeah. So, you know, just this mind of excitement. Okay. It is important to determine the exact nature of excitement because we will inevitably be confronted by it in our meditation. Learning to recognize it when it arises and to treat it with the appropriate antidotes will bring tremendous improvement to the quality of our meditation. Excitement is one of 2 main obstacles to concentration, the other being laxity. Okay. Why is excitement significant in the present context? Because it is the state of agitation deriving from attachment that leads to carelessness. Okay, so you're excited, you're attached, you're really looking forward to something, you're going to go somewhere and be with people that you really like and have a good time and see all these old friends and, you know, do things that you don't normally get to do, and it's going to be really a lot of fun. Okay, so it's this kind of attachment that leads to carelessness, shouting, okay, loud laughter, and to the desire to amuse ourselves and others. So this is what's called being a normal human being who's fun to be with. Isn't it? Yeah, I mean, this is what normal people do. It's like that you look forward to something that is going to be so exciting and so much fun, and you're going to do it with all your friends, and you're all going to have a good time, and so you laugh and you drink and you go to the movies and you know, hang out and talk, and yeah, it's like we all did it, didn't we? Yeah. Okay, what's the problem with doing that? What's wrong with doing that? What do you mean the carelessness part gets us into trouble?
Well, I think then you can really start even breaking the law. I did that once when I was young. It was exactly like that. And we went out and stole like a road sign.
Oh, that's the time you told that story. Yeah, so when you get excited, especially with another group of people, then you really become careless and your wisdom goes down, and you went out and stole the road sign, and you know, other people, I mean, yeah, we all probably did some really stupid things when we were young because we were under the influence of the excitement, and yeah. Huh?
Speech is uncontrollable.
Speech is uncontrollable? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, maybe you could do the major actions of body, but in that kind of excited state, all kinds of negative speech just spew out as a part of the party.
Yeah, okay, so to be part of the party, part of the group, part of having a good time, our speech gets very, very reckless. Yeah, we can exaggerate things, we can make up stories, we can...
Trash the Republicans.
Yeah. Trash the Republicans. What's wrong with that? Could, you know, equal time trash the Democrats, too.
But you know, I'm thinking about it at this level, I don't know how you can be a layperson and not break this one. Truthfully.
Yeah.
You know, and like fit in anywhere unless you just live in the woods somewhere alone.
Well, there are some exceptions to it, you know. We'll come to them. But yeah, it is hard when you have a very active social life. Yeah, because this is what's expected. And this is how people have fun. Okay, so this doesn't mean we need to be like overwhelmingly serious all the time. You know, we're not talking about that, but we're talking about just letting our mind get out of control. Yeah. Yeah.
I sing a lot. Here I know I am very restricted, but I sing all the time. I try to do it when I'm alone.
So I think it's sort of a joy or like something. Am I breaking this one? Because I think it's joy, but probably it's attachment to a stimuli.
Okay, so just singing,
Yeah, whatever.
and whistling, humming.
Or dancing.
Yeah. So you see it as you're doing it out of joy, but only you can look in your mind and see what your motivation is.
My motivation is joy. Like letting out the joy, but probably it's not the way.
It will just look and see. It doesn't have this excited quality that leads you to, do things that are quite reckless or careless, or is it, kind of look and see what the situation is. If it's just joy, nothing wrong with that. But look and see if the mind's like really excited or, yeah. Yeah, you're the only one who's going to be able to determine that. Okay? The 13th secondary misdeed consists of attachment to the excitement we feel when daydreaming, for example, about various distractions such as parties, games, festivities, and entertainment. Oh, the next video game, the next iPhone, the next, widget, electronic thing that I can get, and I'm going to hook it in here and do that with it. And it's going to, yeah, okay. Therefore, when we contemplate attending parties and other social events, we have to carefully check our motives. Yeah. Since the behavior in question is prompted by excitement, it is a misdeed associated with an affliction. We already commit a misdeed when we simply have the strong wish to get involved in any of these activities, whether we act upon it or not. So just the mind being aroused and looking forward and exciting, that already is a transgression. Okay. In a state of excitement, we may, for example, long to sing. Because of the desire for that form of amusement, a misdeed occurs, even if we do not sing. Okay, so you're very excited and, that. If we want to indulge in any of these forms of behavior simply because we have forgotten that we should not do so, and no excitement is involved, then it is a misdeed dissociated from affliction. Okay, so we're, kind of laughing or joking around or whatever, but we've totally forgotten about the precept, and we're not especially interested or excited about it. Yeah, then you're just down to regular wasting your time. Uh-huh.
It's the same if you are attachment for a video or some new, the same like a book of Dharma, it's attachment.
And okay, so you're asking, is it the same being attached to a Dharma book as it is to a video game or some electronic equipment or something? I think it's very, very different, because just the thing of wanting something is not necessarily negative. We want liberation, we want enlightenment, we want a precious human life. Yeah, we want good conditions to practice Dharma. We want a Dharma book so that we can learn. Those kinds of things are fine, There's nothing wrong with wanting things. Yeah. So wanting itself is not necessarily attachment. Yeah. Attachment is when we're exaggerating the good qualities of something and our mind is sticking to it. I've got to have this. I've really got to have this. I really want this. This thing is going to bring me pleasure. This thing is really, being with this person, getting this object, this is really going to make me happy. Okay? So that's the attachment. Yeah? But I want to be, at a retreat, or I want to see my Dharma teacher, I want to see my Dharma friends. That's not necessarily attachment. Yeah? Yeah. This is one thing that people often do, because especially when we hear the word desire, Yeah, in English, the word desire, there's two different kinds of desire. One is like a virtuous desire that's an aspiration for something worthwhile. That's good. Then there's the desire that's like, I gotta have this, I want this. Yeah, that's something that we want to avoid. Okay? Yeah, because you get people at the beginning of the Dharma practice that then say, oh, I really want to go to retreat, but that's so selfish of me. Yeah? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, it depends, of course, what your other options are. But just wanting to do something virtuous is not selfish. Yeah? Okay. There are several exceptions. First, from the angle of the basis. Okay? So here, if we try our best to counter excitement, make a real effort to do so, apply the antidotes, and nevertheless fail because our disturbing mental factors are too strong, it is not a misdeed. So that's the same that we encountered with number 2 of the auxiliary, precepts. You try and counteract the affliction in your mind, but the affliction's too powerful. In that kind of case, then it's not a break. This one is you don't even try to counteract. Okay? And then the following 5 are exceptions due to necessity. So 1, we may joke or laugh in the interests of others, particularly to calm down somebody who is highly irritated or to cheer up somebody who's depressed. Okay? So, being relaxed, being personable, singing or, doing something fun with somebody who's depressed or somebody who's sick or somebody who is stressed out, then this is very nice. It's something that lightens their heart and takes their mind off what they're doing. So that's not a transgression of this. Okay? 2 is we want to get closer to people who are very fond of this kind of amusement in the hopes of one day being able to have a positive influence over them and guide them towards virtue. Okay? So we, let's say we get some teenagers coming up to the Abbey, with their parents. And, we're personable and we're fun and we'll sit and, laugh and joke with them or talk about, whatever, because they're young and, they don't want to talk about Dharma. But if they can see that monastics are nice, kind, relaxed people, then maybe when they're older, then they'll have a favorable impression and they may want to learn something about what we do. Okay? So again, this whole thing isn't that, we have to be like just horribly serious all the time. Okay? Then 3 is we do so to maintain good relations with old friends, relatives, or colleagues by conforming to their wishes. Okay, so you go to visit your family and it's, a holiday season or something. So you do what the family does. Hopefully not fight. But, but you join in the things because you want to keep connection with those people. Or you work in an office, and so as part of working in your office, to have a good relationship with your colleagues, you joke and you talk about different things and you laugh and so on. So that's not a transgression. So all of these things, what you have to be very clear about is that we know what we're doing when we're doing it, and we know why we're doing it. Yeah. So it's not just, I'm being with my colleagues and I'm laughing and I'm joking, and then afterwards I go, that sounded like breaking this precept, but no, it wasn't, because I was keeping a good relationship with my colleagues. No, because at the very time you were doing it, your mind was out of control and you were overtaken by excitement. But if you're doing, when you're doing it, you're quite aware what you're doing and you know why you're doing it. Yeah.
If It's like a family that invite you to go to the beach, or you have a swimming pool, you can swim.
Okay, so can you invite us to go to the beach or a swimming pool? Well, here we have our monastic precepts to be concerned with, and we actually have, I remember it came up with Venerable Wuyin, when we were talking in Bodhgaya, because one of our precepts is to not play in water, But then sometimes people go swimming for health reasons, because it relaxes the muscles and so on and so forth. Yes, for your back and so on. So in that kind of situation, I would think if you were going to a private swimming pool where it was only with people, that you knew who nobody was going to get sexually attracted to each other, then you're doing it purely for exercise, then I think that's fine. Going to the beach is a different story, because it's hard to go to the beach and not look at other people's bodies and have them look at your body. So I think that's a little bit different. But if you're going to exercise, going to a private swimming pool, I think would be okay.
So when there's, I know when I first ordained, I went to visit Jane in Vermont. Brian and his family came up, and after dinner they all went out and had their beers and steaks and stuff around the campfire, roasting marshmallows. I kind of talked and stuff, and I really didn't know what to do, so I didn't go out with them, because they were drinking wine and talking about sports and chatting all night, and I wasn't quite sure how much I was obligation and how much, because I just ordained, I was not quite sure. And so
okay, so you went to visit family, and then after dinner they went out, you had dinner, but then they went out to roast steaks and roast marshmallows and drink beer and just talk about sports and something like that. So are you obligated to go with to kind of maintain a good relationship and everything? For that kind of thing, you've already had dinner, you've spent time with them. So I would say no on that one, and your family gets used to it. You just say, I have to, do my practices, or I'm going to bed early or whatever, and they get used to it. So in that kind of thing, I think it's okay. If you hadn't had dinner together before and that was the only time you were going to see them, then maybe you go for a few minutes, you don't have a beer with them, you stay away from the steak, But, and you chat for a little bit, until you get too bored, and then you excuse yourself.
Because I think what was going on that evening is that it was the first time that Brian and Lisa and the kids had seen Ian Rose and had seen him for a few years. They were so, so self-conscious at dinner. That I was thinking, well, maybe if I just sit around and do marshmallows and kind of connect. Because that wasn't very comfortable there at dinner. But at that point I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to make it better or make it worse. So
you have to kind of see what the situation was. If it was only roasting marshmallows without the beer, it might be something different.
And for example, a person that is ordained and has a lot of compromise going to a wedding, for example, of the sister or of the and there's going to be dancing and alcohol, and what do they have to go in rows or they will go or what?
Okay. So there's a wedding. Your brother, your sister, somebody's getting married. So do you have to go? And what do you wear? Okay. So I remember my brother got married. This was way back, many, many years ago. And my parents wanted me to come, and they hadn't been talking to me for a long time, so I thought it was a good thing to be able to go. And my mother said, I want you to look normal. And I told this to Lama Yeshe, my teacher, and he said, you go and you be California girl. And I said, I don't want to be California girl. I've already been California girl. That's why I became Buddhist nun. So But so Lama knew what I was doing. So I went to the wedding. My mother was so cute. She got a long maroon dress for me to wear. Okay? She didn't make me get my hair done or put makeup on or anything like that. She was content just to have me there in this long purplish maroon dress. Yeah, Lama told me to grow out my hair so it was a little bit long. So I went to the wedding. I didn't dance. For me, it was I find those kinds of things very, very difficult because the noise level of the music I find completely
energetically unsettling.
Yeah, energetically unsettling. Bombarded. I don't find it fun and pleasant. I have to call up my compassion in order to go to things like that, because I don't instinctively find big parties where people are drinking and the music is loud and they're all screaming to have a conversation. I don't find that enjoyable. But on that occasion I went. Yeah. So, yeah. For me it's kind of the thing that I usually, I have to talk myself, I have to arouse my compassion to go to and then leave as soon as I possibly can. Yeah. Because I went to a niece's wedding a couple of years ago and the music was so loud that, like if it had been something quiet where I could have a good conversation with people, that would be fine. Because I feel it's good to make contact with other people and who don't know anything about Buddhism, and that would be fine with me. But the places where you can't hear each other talk, I find that so. Yeah, I'm exhausted afterwards. So.
Do you remember that silent auction, Venerable, that you did in Seattle when Mike Schaefer asked you? I think you did there was a silent auction at one of the synagogues for that nonprofit for the kids, and you went there to do the evening, either the meal blessing or to set a motivation or something, but there was wine and big buffet and things like that.
I don't remember that.
I remember that was really something that I keep in my memory, is that you went because Michael had asked you, and it was a nonprofit, helped raise money for city kids and stuff. And
yeah.
You stayed very little. I mean, you stayed for about, just helping.
Yeah, it's coming back now. Yeah.
I kept in my mind for a long time on how you're willing to do that because it really was something beneficial, but there was a line where it was just, okay, that's all
Yeah.
you do here.
Yeah, they were having the auction for a charity reason.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm remembering now. So I went for a short time to do that and then excused myself. Yeah. And people understand. I think they don't expect you, if you're a monastic, to stay the whole time at the party and,
4 in the morning.
Yeah. I'm getting up at 4 in the morning. You're going to sleep. Okay. The next one is we laugh and smile to show our good feelings towards certain people who we suspect would otherwise be very angry or displeased with us and might turn from us. Okay. So in these various situations, the well-being of others is our main concern, and our inner motivation is not in any way tainted by excitement. Okay, so this last one, it's, you're just being a pleasant person. Yeah, because you want to connect with people and you don't want to upset them or make them angry or whatever. Yeah. But at the same time as being a monastic, there's, you'll do so much, but then you have to draw the line, because otherwise, like the one with invitations, people invite you here and people invite you there, and they want you to go here and you only go there. And you could spend your whole time ostensibly keeping those 2 Bodhisattva vows and have a tremendous social life. Okay? So it's much more a thing of really watching your motivation and doing what you need to do to connect with people, but not out of this thing of, oh, this is going to be so much fun, that kind of thing that's going on. Yeah. The Tibetans laugh a lot, so I think it's actually quite nice. And I've found, some people are surprised. They expect, because in some traditions, actually you're not allowed to smile and show your teeth. Yeah. That's the way they keep it. But the Tibetans are much more relaxed, and just this feeling of, let's have good rapport with people. We don't need to take everything so seriously. But we always need to be aware of what's going on in our mind and what our motivation is. Okay, number 14. Thinking only of remaining in cyclic existence. Believing and saying that followers of the Mahayana should remain in cyclic existence and not try to attain liberation from disturbing attitudes. Okay? So this is actually a wrong conception that many people have. And some people who have this conception are Buddhists. But they think that because bodhisattvas, when you have the bodhisattva, I'm going to remain in samsara for the benefit of sentient beings until they're all liberated. So some people think that that means that bodhisattvas don't try and attain liberation, but they deliberately remain in samsara. What that really means when you hear that is bodhisattva's compassion is so strong that if it would be beneficial for sentient beings, they would remain in samsara. Or it means that they keep, coming back voluntarily or through emanating, making emanations. They come back to the samsaric world for the benefit of sentient beings. But bodhisattvas definitely try and attain enlightenment and liberation. And that's what the bodhicitta is. Okay? But there is this kind of misunderstanding, and several people have asked me about it. They think, I don't know if I want to be a bodhisattva. It means that you just stay in samsara. You don't try and get liberated. And I say, no, that's not the meaning of what there's, what's being said. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Liberation is a synonym of awakening? Liberation I'm using for arhatship. Okay? So the 14th secondary misdeed is thinking and saying that bodhisattvas do not seek liberation from cyclic existence or dread disturbing mental factors, but that they delight in remaining in samsara for the sake of living beings. Okay? This opinion arises from the misinterpretation of certain sutras, which say, for example, bodhisattvas find joy in cyclic existence and are not afraid of it. They do not long for liberation. Yeah, so you hear that kind of thing. Yeah? So people misinterpret. That bodhisattvas find joy in samsara, in fact, means that they delight in taking rebirth in samsara so as to succor living beings. Okay, that's their reason. Yeah. By not longing for liberation, we are to understand that they have no desire to pursue personal liberation from cyclic existence and seek complete enlightenment instead.
When you say complete enlightenment, that means Buddhahood.
Right. Yeah. The misdeed lies in affirming that bodhisattvas wish to stay in cyclic existence, for this is completely false. In fact, the opposite is true. Driven by great compassion for all living beings, they cannot bear to see them suffer, and ardently wish to help them and their misery, help them end their misery and find true happiness. Consequently, they strive to free themselves from the afflictions that maintain them in cyclic existence even harder than listeners, hearers, and solitary realizers do. Okay, they know full well that to help others achieve liberation, they must first free themselves and thereby acquire the full capacity to work for the sake of others. Okay? To help all living beings gain freedom from cyclic existence, bodhisattvas must, of course, fraternize with them. In their relations with others, at times they may need to display afflictions to get in touch with ordinary beings. Although it is not always understood as such, in fact, this kind of demonstration of afflictions is an example of skillful means that aim to benefit others. Okay, so sometimes bodhisattvas, when they take birth in samsara or send an emanation, to work for sentient beings, then in order to connect with others, they'll do things that may look like they have afflictions in their mind, but they don't have afflictions in their mind. They're doing this as a skillful means to connect with others. Okay? So for a bodhisattva, that's fine. But this is another one where people use bodhicitta to rationalize their behavior. Oh, I have so much compassion for all these people who are getting drunk at the pub. So I think I better go hang out with them, and then they can get to know a Buddhist. And I'm not going to drink, of course, but, I'll be there and they'll get to know a Buddhist, and then I'll get them interested in Dharma, and they'll stop drinking. If you're a real bodhisattva, yeah. But if you're a Mickey Mouse bodhisattva, no. Yeah, because what's going to happen instead is you're going to start drinking. Yeah, and your supposed bodhicitta is just a rationalization. So, okay, yeah.
This was actually very helpful for me because once I saw Daya Rinpoche going to a party after a retreat.
Uh-huh.
And I was really wondering what he was doing, and some people told me, she's watching us so you will not make any mistakes there. That art was too.
Uh-huh.
And I heard that he was not drinking, dancing. He had a smile on his hand, and sometimes some people came to him and he spoke with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that probably the case.
Yeah. 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 So that's a very good example, where he went and he was a lay teacher and, and he was very composed during the whole thing, but he was able to make contact with other people. That was very helpful. And maybe if some of the students were also at the party, it helped them watch their own behavior a little bit better. Okay. Then 15 is not rejecting dispute, or here, not abandoning negative actions which cause one to have a bad reputation. Okay. Now, usually we're so attached to our reputation that we'll abandon anything we have to abandon in order to have a good reputation. But sometimes we're so attached to doing something that we don't care if we have a bad reputation. And we don't care if it upsets other people because we just want to go ahead and do this. Okay, so it's applying to that kind of situation. So the Great Way describes this fault as not protecting our reputation. In short, it is not trying to overcome disrepute. There are two possible scenarios. In the first, bad rumors are circulating about us because we have made a mistake, like saying something untrue. Doing nothing to rectify the situation, such as admitting our error and correcting it, is a misdeed associated with afflictions. Okay? So, we have a bad reputation because we made a mistake, yeah, and other people are saying nasty things about us, and we don't bother to correct it. Yeah, we just say, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to admit it. I don't care. Just let these people. So we've annoyed people, and we don't care, and we have a bad reputation as a result of it. So what's wrong as a bodhisattva with having a bad reputation?
It's hard to connect with people. They don't want to be around you.
Yeah. Right. People are not going to be around with you, so it's going to be hard to be a benefit to them.
How can you be a bodhisattva when you do bad action and you're careless about the others.
Yeah.
That's a bodhisattva.
Right. But especially for us in training to be bodhisattvas, we may do bad actions. Yeah. Sorry for suggesting this. But you know, and so when we do, then it's important that we acknowledge it, you know, and we don't just shine it on and say, you know, who cares? I have a bad reputation, who cares, you know? Yeah.
If someone is the ambassador of the Dharma, like the fourth voice,
Uh-huh.
like you represent the Dharma. So
Uh-huh.
if you're having bad reputation, people may associate that with Dharma and make it with
Right, right, yeah. So if you're representing the Dharma in one way or another in people's minds, and you misbehave and don't do anything to correct it, then it gives people the wrong feeling about the Dharma. Yeah? So that's one scenario where we actually made a mistake and we're just shining it on, okay? In the second case, we are criticized or blamed for something that we have not done. Okay? Once again, doing nothing to restore our reputation and correct a false impression is a misdeed, for it prevents others from having a good opinion of us. In this case, however, the misdeed is dissociated from afflictions. It is not a question of denying the bad habits that we have, and we certainly do not avoid the secondary misdeed by merely disowning them. On the contrary, it is by acknowledging our error that we must try to end others' blame. So in the second example, we haven't done something, but people have, that's wrong, but people misinterpreted something, or they made up stories, or who knows what, and we know this is going on, that people are telling bad stories about us, but we don't do anything to correct the situation. We just let it go. Yeah, and he's saying here that that's not correct, because then people think badly of us, and so how are we going to benefit them? Yeah, if they think badly of us over something that's untrue, we should correct the situation. You know, if they think badly of us because of something true, we should apologize. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Story with a monk on Abbey, and there was a woman, she was pregnant, she became a child, and she went up and had abuse, and she spoke badly about him.
Yeah.
They had a relation, and then later she came back and took this child again to herself, and he was only saying, oh, is it like this, or something like this? Is it like this? He wasn't protecting himself.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's a kind of good story to say, okay, he has a lot of patience and kindness.
Yeah. Okay, but they have that same story in the Tibetan tradition. Yeah, funny. But yeah, the story about there being a great master who's monastic, and then a woman comes up and accuses him of fathering her child. Okay, and he just says, kind of, yeah, like he said, oh really, is it like this, or and that story is often used as an example to show somebody a story of somebody who is practicing patience, and somebody who doesn't have any attachment to their reputation. Okay, so that story is very good for showing not being attached to your reputation and not getting angry when you're falsely accused and in front of a large group of people. That story is very good for illustrating that. Okay, but we shouldn't take that story to mean that therefore whenever we have a bad reputation we don't do anything to correct it. Okay, stories are told to illustrate certain points, but what often happens is we get another theme from the story that the story was not told. It was, that wasn't meant by the teller of the story. Okay? Yeah. So, if you wanted to tell a story about this, this one, you would say, oh, somebody's saying bad stuff about you, behind your back, and you have to go and say, excuse me, here are the circumstances, and this information is incorrect, and so on and so forth, okay? But that story wouldn't be nearly as effective for illustrating the point of somebody who's not attached to their reputation, okay? So you use different stories to illustrate different points. Okay? In certain cases, doing nothing to correct others' bad feelings towards us is not a misdeed. Okay, so there are exceptions to this one. First, when we are convinced that they will not listen because of their strong personal opinions. So if somebody has a wrong idea about us, has a bad opinion of us, and we just feel like, they're just really entrenched in their opinion and they're not going to listen even if we try and explain. So we don't. We just leave it, because in that kind of situation, maybe it's better just let things settle down and soothe, and then have the person see you in another situation where they can see that you're a different kind of person. So there could be a situation in which it's better to handle it that way, not saying everything. Our second situation is we know that they will not believe us no matter what we say, okay? So we could talk till we're blue in our face, but they're not going to believe. Or third, the people criticizing us are so angry that they would not understand what we said to them, okay? So they're so furious that even if we tried to explain, they can't let any new information in. So in that kind of situation too, then you just let it be and let it calm. And then maybe in the future, when things are a little bit calmer, then you can go back and explain to them. Okay? But the whole idea is here that we're protecting our reputation not out of attachment, but because in order to be of benefit to others, we have to have, we don't have to be Mr. or Ms. Popularity, but we have to, people need to think well of us, otherwise we're not going to be able to help them in any way in the Dharma. Okay? So it's also a good reason to kind of clean up our act too. And, when we're not acting very well, it's like, oh, this is going to adversely affect other living beings, and I really want to benefit these people, but if I keep on acting the way I'm acting, they're not going to be benefited. Yeah, they'll get totally the wrong idea about the Dharma. Okay?
I'm a little bit unsure about both the second auxiliary precept and then the number 13 that we just went over today. About what, when these are just happening as things in our mind, what's the level at which it has to be, what's the strength of this thought for it to actually be a misdeed?
Okay, so what's the strength of the thought for number 2 and number 13? Well, exactly, 14.5 seconds, at level 3 intensity. It doesn't say. I think it has to be something where, you're cultivating the thought over, some period of time and doing nothing to counteract it. Yeah, it doesn't say how long. Yeah, but, some period of time where, the thought's been kind of floating around there enough, and you're getting really involved in it, and you're making plans already for how to get what you want, or, planning the party, and yeah, you're getting lost in it. Yeah, that's what I would think it would be, Of course, as we practice more and more, then we're going to get stricter and stricter with ourselves. And as we practice more and more, then what we hold ourselves to, the standard we hold ourselves to, is going to change. Yeah? Because at the beginning it might be, well, okay, if I'm on this thought for 15 minutes in the middle of my meditation session, then, okay, it's a transgression. But as you begin practicing, and you become more capable of noticing things in your mind and counteracting them, then your own standard for yourself is going to change. And, by it's not going to be 15 minutes, it's going to be 5 minutes. Okay? Because as you practice, things, what I'm getting at is when we're a baby beginner, things we give ourselves the leeway to do, because if we were so strict, we would go absolutely crazy. Later on, when we've been able to deal with those big things, then we handle the small ones. And that's what I meant when I said we become stricter. The standard that we hold ourselves to is different because, the big things are not problems as they used to be. Okay? Yeah. But at the beginning, we always just look at the things that are the biggest problems. Yeah, deal with those. Don't drive yourself crazy over things that are not huge problems. Yeah, look at the things that are really big problems for you.
When do you know that it's not the beginning anymore? It's always the beginning.
Yeah. No, but that's just what I meant, that, you always feel like a beginner, but what it's like if you're learning to skip rope or something. Yeah? What you hold yourself to is going to change as you get better at skipping rope. Are you jumping rope? Jump rope? Yeah? Uh-huh.
But even if you are not monastic,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, but something's happening in a way when you're growing, or that you don't like to go to the party to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not monastic, but I don't. It's not fun for me now.
Yeah.
All that thing.
Right.
To
Yeah.
go to a disco now,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like the music and all, and I think something is happening inside of me.
Yeah.
It's not fun for me.
Exactly.
I'm not monastic.
Yeah. That's fine.
There are a lot of persons talking and smoke, and you say, what I'm doing here?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Something begins
Yeah.
to change in your
Right.
in your life.
Yeah. So you're saying even though you're not a monastic, you're still seeing these changes in yourself, and that the things that you used to think were so much fun and excitement, now you just find like, ugh, you don't want to go to. And so that's, indicative of a change inside of you. You don't need to be monastic to have big changes happen inside of you, So this is a result of your practice. Good. Yeah. Okay.